You may be seated. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So I have a question for you. Not usually. Who are your heroes? Who are your heroes? Who are those real people that you really look up to? Who are those people you really respect? Either living people or people from history.
You're asking us?
Yeah.
Not living.
Or from history.
Jesus?
Okay. Your wife. Smart answer.
Mother Teresa.
Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
Everybody has heroes. We all do. We have heroes of one kind or another. Whether, when you're a kid, most of the time your heroes are people like Superman and Batman, Lone Ranger, or maybe if you're a girl, Wonder Woman, something like that. I know when I was a kid, I wanted to be those people. You know what I mean? I kind of imagined that I was one of my heroes. I pretended to go on the adventures that I thought they would have when I was much younger. Then when I got a little bit older, I tried to emulate them. You see, one of my heroes was Evel Knievel. I built ramps using boards and dining room furniture and tried to jump my bicycle as far as it would go. Sometimes it had disastrous results. Sometimes. But when I grew older, I remember watching some of the interviews of Evel Knievel on TV, and I realized that he was not a nice person. And he stopped being one of my heroes. I didn't want to be like Evel Knievel anymore. I never tried to jump a motorcycle. But as we get older, our heroes tend to go and change from being people we imagine ourselves being to people we respect, whose lives we respect. And most of it, well, some of you may still want to imagine you're Superman and pretend you're Superman. I'm okay with that. That's what you want to do. But most of us tend to be a little more realistic. I don't imagine I'm Evel Knievel anymore or Superman. I know I'm not Superman. But, heroes. So imagine, for today's purposes, that you're a first century Jew. You live in first century Israel. And not just a first century Jew anywhere, you're a first century Jew in Jerusalem. Okay? So imagine that. This is who you are. So then, as a first century Jew in Jerusalem, what do you think makes you special? What is it that you would think would set you apart from anybody else, from all the other peoples in the world? That's just pretty simple. You know what makes you special if you're a first century Jew in Jerusalem? Is that you're part of the chosen people. That's what sets you apart. You were chosen by God to be His people. God picked you. So you're special. Out of all the nations in the world, of all the peoples in the world, God picked you. Okay? So how do you know, in fact, that you were chosen by God? What makes you so cool? How do you know that? Well, the answer is, what sets you apart is the law of Moses. It's the law of Moses that sets you apart. The law of Moses, which was given by God Himself to Moses. It's what sets you apart. Makes you different from all the other nations. It's what makes you special. So naturally you then love the law, because the law is what makes you special, it's what sets you apart. And because you love the law, which gives you purpose, which gives you your very meaning in life, for not just individually, but as an identity, as a group of people, with this love of the law then, how do you think you might feel about the man who brought it to you? Moses. There's your hero. Moses is your hero. Moses is your homeboy. Moses is the Superman of Jewish heritage. We all have heroes. If we're a first century Jew, Moses would be one of your greatest heroes, along with Elijah. maybe amongst the top 3 heroes of all time. So here, in the first 2 chapters of the book of Hebrews, which is what I'm going to be teaching out of, by the way, the first 2 chapters, which is written to the first century Jews in Jerusalem, that's who it's written to, these are people who have already become followers of Jesus. He's writing to those who are already followers of the way. But there's a problem here. The author has already made clear in the first part of this letter that Jesus is greater than the angels, and that he is greater than the law. He's above the law of Moses. So keeping with this theme that started in chapters 1 and 2 of Jesus is greater than fill in the blank, it continues here, and we see Jesus' superiority to the greatest Jewish hero of all time, Moses. It's about heroes. So we have a comparison in Scripture of Jesus to Moses. Let me give you some context about these people. The problem that's being addressed here by the writer of the letter to the Hebrews is that he's writing to a group of Christians in Jerusalem who are considering going away from the way, abandoning this new faith they've come into, and going back to Orthodox Judaism. They're on the verge of falling away. They're considering reverting to what they've known most of their life because it's comfortable, because it's easy. It's what they're used to. It's what they've done before. So this letter that we don't actually know who wrote it, the letter was written to the Hebrews, is showing to them from a very logical perspective why they should not, why they should understand the superiority of Jesus in relation to all things Jewish. That he's a greater hero than Moses. So how does the Son of Man, the Son of God, measure up to Moses? I love this passage. It's pretty cool. So, verse 1. Therefore, holy brothers, you who share in a heavenly calling, consider Jesus. That's a good start. Then he says, the apostle and high priest of our confession. Consider Jesus. Don't just walk away. Think about this for a minute. And the word actually translated as consider means to fix your eyes, fix your mind, fix the fullness of your attention upon this one thing. Focus. Remember when we first figured out that Frank had ADD, one of the things we would do is we'd hold him by the head, and I'd take it up and go, focus. look here, focus. And you get about 2 seconds, something distracted. Focus. We're supposed to focus upon Jesus here. Consider Jesus. And then he goes on to say that Jesus is the apostle. He's the apostle. But what this means is that he's the one sent from God to represent God to us. The definition of an apostle is one sent by the king to represent the king. It's an ambassador plenipotentiary. Has all the authority and power of the one that sent him. So he's saying to the Jews, Jesus is the ambassador, is the apostle from God, sent by God to represent God to us. This is not just somebody who came along as some itinerant preacher. This is greater than that. He says, and he's the high priest. So not only does he represent God to us, as the high priest, he then represents us to God. He fulfills both roles at once. Moses didn't do that. Moses didn't do that. Let's consider Moses. Moses is a great hero. Make no doubt about it. He was a Hebrew raised by the daughter of Pharaoh. He fled Egypt because he was a murderer. He was afraid of being put out because if somebody witnessed him do the murders, he was afraid of being arrested and killed or something. Gone, ran away. So, remember when he was growing up, he saw an Egyptian overseer beating one of the Hebrew slaves. And he killed that overseer. That was the murder he committed. And he ran. And once he ran, he went all the way to Egypt. Now, out of Egypt into the desert, where he then became a shepherd for this guy named Jethro. Nothing to do with Jethro Gibbs on NCIS or Jethro Tull. But no, Jethro the Midianite. And while he was a shepherd, tending his flock, kind of actually makes sense, kind of a pastoral experience, a pastoral lifestyle, I guess. One day he sees a burning bush. And it changed his life. I imagine if I saw a burning bush that wasn't being burned up, it changed my life too. So, and God calls him out of that burning bush to deliver his people from the Egyptians. Okay? So we have that Moses became a leader, became the deliverer of the Israelites from Egypt. God's agent, God's servant. So he sends Moses to Egypt to demand the release of the Israelites, and after a lot of this semi-diplomatic stuff that God does, like plagues and things like that. After all this happens, Pharaoh releases the Israelites into Moses' custody, and Moses delivers God's people away from them, from slavery in Egypt, and he becomes a hero. He becomes a hero to the Israelites. That's a pretty impressive resume. So how does Jesus measure up with that? We're comparing this, remember? Well, Jesus didn't leave Egypt to go into the desert. No, he left heaven to come to earth. Okay, that's an even bigger step down, I think. Yep. And he came to earth not only to live here and be one of us, to live with one of us, but also to be a sacrifice for our sin. And give his very life for us. Moses is sent to Egypt, Jesus is sent to the whole world. Moses delivers the people of Israel in Egypt from slavery in that country. Jesus delivers all of the world from slavery to sin. Now the journey from Egypt, granted, when Moses was there, wasn't an easy one. After all, he had these people who kept grumbling for nearly 40 years. Just whining the whole time. But God, in spite of their grumbling, continued providing for the Israelites while they were wandering in the desert. He cared for them anyway, despite their grumbling. I can identify that as a parent, taking care of my kids even when they were whining and grumbling at me. I did anyway. In Exodus chapter 20, we see that they get to Mount Sinai. God descends on Mount Sinai in fire. Remember where the tablets, where he would first call Moses? He descends on Mount Sinai in fire. The mountain is covered in smoke, in a cloud of smoke. And then God spoke to Moses out of the middle of this cloud of smoke, this dense cloud. And here he gives Moses the law. Moses brings the law down the mountain to the people, which has some problems as he comes down the mountain, but he delivers the law to the people. Moses is a hero and deliverer again. Moves them out of Egypt, delivers the law. Delivered twice. And the law that is so revered to them by the Jews is given them by Moses. Their identity is bound up in the actions of Moses. He's a hero. He's the man that led them to become the children of God. The leader that helped them be set apart according to the law. He's the one through whom the law of God came. Which makes him the ultimate hero of the Jewish faith. And so the Israelites here, the new followers, the new Christians in Jerusalem, are considering going back to running behind Moses. I think because they really don't understand who Jesus is. They don't understand what he's done. They're going back to their greatest hero because they don't understand how heroic Jesus is. So, Moses brings them the law. What does Jesus bring? How about grace? How about grace? That offers a law any day of the week. John 1, 17 and 18, for the law was given through Moses, grace and truth come through Jesus Christ. The law makes us aware of our sin, but eternal life, life itself, comes from the grace of God, which comes through Jesus. So while Moses brings the law, Jesus brings grace and life. Moses brings the old covenant of sacrifice and death. Jesus brings us a new covenant of grace and life. Jesus is greater than Moses. Jesus, in fact, completes what Moses could not do. He brings us salvation that is greater than Moses. He brings us to a Sabbath that Moses could not give. He leads us into the promised land that Moses was not able to do. Jesus is greater than Moses. In fact, so for all the things that Moses was, and everything he's upheld and looked up to, for which he's considered to be a hero, in every category, Jesus is greater than Moses. Doesn't mean that Moses isn't a great man. He was. But it shows us the true glory of Jesus. Jesus has a greater responsibility and a greater ability than Moses. And thus he's worthy of greater honor and greater devotion. This is the argument that's being put to these first century Christian Jews in Jerusalem. After all, that's who this book was written to. Never forget the context of what's being written in Scripture. It's part of the message being put forth. These Christians are considering walking away from their faith, considering turning their backs and letting go of their Christian beliefs and going back to Orthodox Judaism. Going back to following Moses. And Jesus is greater, and as such, Christianity, therefore, is greater than the Jewish faith. Jesus is the creator. Moses is the created. Jesus is the Son of God. Moses is the servant of God. Jesus is greater than Moses. So what our author here in his letter to the Hebrews is encouraging these people to do is to focus on Jesus. Fix their eyes upon Jesus. He's encouraging them to keep the faith, to endure, to press on, in spite of the hardship and persecution that they're undergoing, which is what is causing them to want to turn away from the faith. They're being persecuted. So, what then does the third chapter of Hebrews have for us? If all this is true, we're not struggling with turning back to Judaism. I'm not. Are you? No? But we can learn from the principles here in Hebrews 3, because the truth of the matter is that every one of us does struggle with going back to our old way of life. It's the same struggle we have today. The Hebrew people were in danger of going back to their old way of life. The way they'd done things before. It was easy. It was comfortable. That's the very thing that threatens the church today. It threatens us individually today. See, now our old way of life is different from theirs. In fact, our old ways of life are different from each one of us. We're all very different. When life gets hard, when we face trials and hardships and other things, we're tempted to turn back and begin living again like we don't know Christ. We don't know him like we know him now. We're tempted to give in to our worldly desires. But when we apply Hebrews chapter 3 here, we will find ourselves better able to endure the hardships of the world, which come. They do come. And the lessons in this passage make us better able to endure and resist the temptation to sin, to turn away from God and go back to the old stuff. When life gets hard, when we become weary, we are tempted to go back to our old way of life. Tempted to go back to our old way of responding and relating to things around us. That's the fallback. It's what we know. It's what we know best. It's that with which we're most comfortable doing, because it's almost habitual. But that way is sin. That's doing things according to our will, not the will of God. And so by very definition, it is sin to turn back. We're not unbelievers anymore. We've heard the message. We've heard the gospel. We've seen the truth. We know that there's more to this life. There's more because we have seen the power of God at various levels in our life. In ourselves and in others. We've seen what God can do. Now the danger is different for each one of us, because each one of us has different temptations, different ways in which we're tempted to fall back. Each of us left a different life in following after God. But the temptation for each one of us is still to turn back, to go back to the old way of doing stuff. When life gets hard, think about this. kind of behaviors are you tempted to revert to? What kind of ways of relating with your situation with other people are you tempted to fall back into? There are all kinds of escapes we want to fall into when things get tough and things get hard. All ways and behaviors that were popular escapes from pain that the world might call us to and say, do this and you won't hurt as much. Do this and you'll feel better. But those ways all lead to death. They all lead to death. Only one way leads to life, to eternal life in Christ Jesus. Only one path will actually, at any point, give us rest. So, what do you turn? What do you turn to? What is it in the world that you're drawn to when life gets hard? Be honest with yourself. What pattern of behavior is the comfortable, ungodly pattern of behavior that you fall into so easily? Where, apart from Christ, are you tempted to go when you're troubled? Don't go there. Turn to Christ instead. Focus on Christ. Consider Jesus, the apostle and high priest of our confession. We live in a world that teaches us that life is most enjoyable, life is most beneficial when we maximize our own gratification, when we assuage our own hurts in ways that make us feel good, when it's about us. The world says the only way to be happy is to indulge our every desire. That's a lie. That is a lie. When life gets hard, we will focus on something. I promise you that. And whatever it is we focus upon is that very same thing to which we are drawn. Therefore, I tell you there is an answer. Holy brothers and sisters, you who share in this heavenly calling, consider Jesus, the apostle and high priest of our confession. Consider Jesus. Focus on him. Spend time with him. Invest in your relationship with him. Invest your time with him, because only Jesus can give us the rest we need when things are tough. When stuff starts happening faster than we can cope with, that's the time to focus on Jesus. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his